everyone, it's me, Melanie, your IVF nurse, and I wanted to do a quick reintroduction of myself to you. The last time I did an introduction video was about 4 years ago when I first launched my YouTube channel. So I just figured as my subscribers have increased over the years, thank you, I just wanted to kind of touch base with everyone and let you know a little bit about me, how your IVF nurse came to be, and of course my contact information if you should need it or if you feel that you know someone who may benefit from reaching out to me as well. So I have been a registered nurse, or I graduated in 1998, so I've been around for quite some time. I did work in a hospital for initially, when I first graduated, I worked strictly in the hospital on night shift for about a year and a half. After doing that, I kind of got a little, stir crazy because I was so sleep deprived. But what ended up happening was I ended up getting a part-time day job in a clinic. And I kept the hospital job. So for about 7 years after that, I continued to work both part-time jobs, because my hospital job was part-time, but it was predominantly at night, and my clinic job was a day job. So I was able to kind of work through that for about 7 years after that. Now, what ended up happening was I ended up leaving the hospital job, and I ended up also leaving that part-time clinic job. And I had a colleague who actually reached out to me and said, Melanie, they're hiring at a fertility clinic. I think you'd really do well in this type of work environment. So I sent out my resume. I did get a call back. I actually sent it out to more than one clinic. So I got a few calls back, and what ended up happening was I ended up selecting to work in a clinic that is probably one of the largest ones in Toronto or Canada in terms of the services that they provide. They do everything on site. I'm not going to provide any clinic names, but if you're really, really curious, you can go onto my LinkedIn page and you can just find me there, and the details of where I've worked over the years are listed there. Now, I worked at that particular fertility clinic for about a year and a half, and the things that I did was, I dealt with a lot of clients during cycle monitoring. One of the things that this clinic is very well known for is their third-party program. So dealing with egg donors, surrogates. I worked in the recovery room as well, in the pre-op area, getting people ready for their egg retrievals or embryo transfers. And then also assisting or scrubbing in the procedure room, and also sedating patients. Now, when I had the opportunity to leave that job, there was another fertility clinic that was just starting up, and I thought, oh, this would be a great opportunity. They were a small clinic, and I thought it would be interesting in terms of growth, just to see how a clinic actually gets up and running, and just from the very beginning stages. So I jumped at that opportunity. I did continue to work at that particular clinic for about 7 years. Now, in that particular clinic, they were a satellite. So because they were a smaller clinic, they didn't offer egg retrieval procedures at that site. So meaning they had an affiliation with another larger clinic downtown, and egg retrievals, embryo transfers would be done at that other site. But all the cycle monitoring for timed intercourse cycles, insemination cycles, even the IVF cycles were all done at that satellite location. Now, over the 7 years, I went from being a staff nurse to becoming nurse manager, and then something inside me kind of really missed being in a procedure room. So I ended up getting a hospital job that was very short term in the reproductive unit as well, which kind of refreshed all of my skills that I had from years prior. So back into doing egg retrievals, cycle monitoring, embryo transfers, hysteroscopies, many different things that this particular hospital-based program offered, which was really good. But it was short term for my employment there, as I was recruited by another fertility clinic to be their nurse manager. And this was a smaller IVF center, but it was a full-on IVF center. And basically, I had my team of nurses, and we were able to do everything from cycle monitoring, third party, so with egg donors and surrogates. We did IVF procedures, embryo transfers, many high volume of patients for the size of the clinic that it was. Very fast paced. All of these fertility clinics are very fast paced, and you need to excel in an environment like that, which I find I thrive in. One of the things that I loved about working in the clinic environment, especially as a nurse manager, was the fact that I got to actually spend one-on-one time with patients. If there were issues, any concerns, if patients felt that their needs weren't being met, when they met with me, it gave me an opportunity to really talk to them and see how they were doing, address any questions or concerns, and then resolve those concerns that they had as well. It always amazes me that patients, when they have a good relationship with a healthcare provider, and I find that being a fertility nurse, sometimes patients will share very intimate details of their life, whether it be financial, relationship, physical, emotional details that they will share with, well, that they've shared with me. And I find that in the event that they're sharing, and, obviously I think that when patients are sharing very personal details that they haven't even shared with a doctor, they're looking for feedback or looking for advice. So in any event that I have ever felt a concern for what a patient was sharing with me, I always was able to address it in terms of if there was additional resources that needed to be tapped into, I was able to refer out, obviously bring any concerns I had to the doctor or doctors that I was working with at the time. So it really tapped into me listening and just kind of building that relationship with patients. Now, after that one clinic job that I had worked there for just over 3 years. And what ended up happening was I was feeling burnt out. Ontario in Canada. Ontario is one of the provinces that offer funding for IVF cycles. The details are on my website if you're curious to know what kind of funding the government offers to fertility patients. Now, the patient volume had increased. The clinic was going under an inspection, which is something all clinics have to go through in Canada just to continue to operate as a out-of-hospital clinic or where you're doing procedures. So once that was all completed, it was just, in all honesty, I was at the point where I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be a nurse anymore, or if I just wanted to change everything about what I was doing. So I did take some time off, and what ended up happening was I had nurses reaching out to me from the clinic that patients were coming in there and contacting them looking for me, looking for ways how to get in contact with me. So I had said, you can provide them with this email. Patients reached out to me. It was lovely to talk to them. I still continue to talk to them just to kind of check in and see how they are, and they check in and see how I am as well. And then I've also, over the years, any friends or family that had any questions related to sexual health or trying to conceive, they always reached out to me. And one of the other things, and I know that there are nurses out there that do this because I'm not the only nurse, but when I was working in fertility clinics, what ended up happening was when you have a patient that comes in, whether it's for one cycle or multiple cycles back to back, you develop these relationships, and there's a bit of a closeness, and what ends up happening is that, if there's concerns about them doing their injections or their trigger shot in particular, many times I have been that nurse where I've met patients at some interesting places to get their trigger shot completed on time. They've also come to my home. I've gone to their home. So it's something that I thought, okay, there really is a need for this, where the additional support. Now, in that 2-month time frame that I did take off from work or working for a clinic, that's when I launched Your IVF Nurse. Now, with that being said, I was doing some part-time work, casual work at another fertility clinic, which helped, because when I first started off, I was concerned with, how busy I was going to be, if people were going to really actually need my services. So it was something that I was kind of just feeling out at first, even though I went ahead and kind of jumped in and set up this business. Now, I'm going into my 4th year of Your IVF Nurse, which is Mitchell Nursing Professional Corporation. And things have been great, except for this lovely COVID-19. Now, in terms of my services, I've always offered services via telephone, Skype, FaceTime, whatever you need in terms of communicating with me. Many times people email me, so there's a lot of things back and forth via email. I try and, stay current on Instagram. I also have this YouTube channel as well, where I'm able to provide some educational information. One of the things that I had originally said in my initial introductory video 4 years ago was that my goal was to kind of post a new video every week, and I was asking for people to reach out to me to let me know if there was anything that you wanted me to discuss or review. So I have had some feedback over the years regarding that. And in this time where we've all kind of been in self-isolation and having to stay home, I have reviewed the videos. So there are some that I'm going to be updating. So stay tuned for that. And then I'm going to continue. If you feel that there is something you'd like for me to discuss, please, you can comment down below. You can email me just to kind of say, I'd really like to hear your opinion on this, or what are your thoughts on this, or even if it's a quick blurb and you really don't want me to do a video, but maybe you have a question about something. So I do have a website. My website is www.yourivfnurse.com. There you can go to and you'll see all of my services. I'm very transparent, so all of my fees are also listed there as well. That's one of the things that I think is important, that people need to see all the information up front. Now, if there is a service that is not listed on my website, reach out to me. I have done things, doctors have reached out to me on behalf of clients to do things, and it may not be listed on my website, but it is there in terms of being able to be done. If I can do it, I will say yes or no, and then we can arrange that additional service. But everything is pretty much laid out in terms of the services that I offer. So injection services can be done in your home or your location of your choosing. I also offer fertility coaching, so if you don't want to necessarily do a package and have IVF support throughout your cycle, but you just want to discuss your results here and there as you get them, that's something else that is available. There's third-party support, so if you're considering working with an egg donor or a surrogate or both, those are things that I'm very familiar with. I have a list of counselors that are highly recommended in the Toronto area that also offer counseling via Skype, telephone. They will tell you, set up the appointment and be able to advise you as to how they can offer you their session. Same thing, top lawyers in Toronto for this. And then if you're outside of Ontario, then they can refer you to a lawyer in your province that can assist you in your journey, depending on if you're using a surrogate and where your surrogate lives and whatever. Anyway, so all of those things I can help you with. And as I mentioned, if there's something that you think is not listed on my website as a service, and you're thinking that you would like to know if I can offer this particular service to you, you can reach out to me most definitely. My email directly is melanie@yourivfnurse.com. For general information or questions that you might have, you can email yourivfnurse@gmail.com. Once again, my website is www.yourivfnurse.com. My Instagram is Your IVF Nurse, and of course you're here watching this video on YouTube, so you can comment down below, or if you find that you know someone who would benefit from my information, please feel free to share. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting.